Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar on how Smoothie King uses AI to draft and review contracts faster. Before we get started, just a quick overview of what we'll be covering in today's discussion. First, we'll spend some time talking through Smoothie King's evaluation of CLMs and their implementation journey before diving into their AI use case and the results they've seen. And then finally, we'll wrap up with some Q&A. So get those questions flowing. I'm your host. My name is Lauren Kasner. I'm the Director of Professional Services here at Ironclad, and I'll be your moderator for today. A little bit about me and my journey at Ironclad. I've been at Ironclad for 5 years now, almost to the day. My 5-year anniversary was on Monday. Joined on the customer success side, supporting many of our customers, and over the last 3 years have really been on the professional services side, working closely with our amazing global team, implementing new customers, just like Josh at Smoothie King. Super happy to be joined by Josh Nicosia today, who's the Chief Legal Officer at Smoothie King. So Josh, I will hand it over to you to give a quick intro on yourself.
Great, thanks Lauren, I appreciate it. As you mentioned, I'm Josh Nicosia, Chief Legal Officer with Smoothie King. I've been with the brand for about 3 years now, and I've been practicing law for almost 20 years. 15 of those years have been in the franchise space as GC across several different brands, ranging from small emerging growth brands all the way up to large public companies. And in terms of a little bit about Smoothie King, we are the largest smoothie and smoothie bowl chain in the world. We've been around for over 50 years, and we have over 1,150 locations across the U.S. And what makes us kind of special is our mission, I think, and that's really to inspire people to live a healthy and active lifestyle. And kind of what that means and why it's kind of neat is, regardless of your purpose, regardless of how you define healthy and active lifestyle, we have a product, we have a smoothie for you. So thank you, Lauren, and thanks to the Ironclad team for having me.
Love that. As a smoothie fiend myself, super excited to channel my inner smoothie today. So we're super excited to have you here with us today, Josh. Thanks again for taking the time. For everyone in attendance, thank you so much for submitting your questions during registration. We received a ton of them, and we'll really help use them today to guide our conversation. We'll try to save time towards the end of the conversation for some live Q&A. So definitely encourage you all to drop in your questions in the Q&A tab, and let's get started. All right. Josh, tell us a little bit about the legal team at Smoothie King. What challenges were you all looking to solve when you were evaluating CLMs? What were some of the key considerations you had in mind, and how did AI kind of play a role in that? And then finally, would love to understand how you ultimately ended up choosing Ironclad.
Yeah, that's a lot of questions, but let me hit them. So first, a little bit about the team. I think the saying is we have a small but mighty team, and that's actually true. We have 2 attorneys here at Smoothie King, including myself, and 2 paralegals. So it's a small team, but it is growing. I'll give a little selfless plug. I am looking to hire an additional junior attorney this summer. So if anyone on the call knows of anyone, please send him my way. But so it's a small team. And because of the department size, I'm a big fan of trying to find ways to utilize technology to make our team more efficient. I think it's critical with smaller companies and smaller teams. Like, how can we move that business forward given the resources you have in front of you? And so, Lauren, you asked next, I think, about challenges that we're looking to solve. And when I started looking into a CLM solution, I started right after I joined Smoothie King because, like some of you out there, you may have had like a OneDrive account with a folder structure and hierarchy. You couldn't search for anything. And you probably have nightmares, I know I do, about sometime during COVID when you got that call saying, hey, we have to pull all contracts that have force majeure language or termination for convenience language to see what can we get out of. And what a pain that was without a repository. So I knew that right away when I joined Smoothie King, we had to solve for that. And then once I was like, okay, we need a repository, the next question was, what else can we be doing within our team to be more efficient? And I think contract drafting and the processes about that, it's really simple, and it was the next step. Historically, how in other brands or even early on with Smoothie King prior to implementing Ironclad, the process is pretty simple. It's you exchange emails internally, you get the request in, you email the counterparty. We had a unique process, I think, where we had one-page summaries for all of our contracts prior to them getting signed. And so somebody had to prepare the key points. We then had to walk it around or email it through DocuSign for various sign-offs prior to just having a contract be signed. So it was really cumbersome. It was time-consuming. And so I wanted to kind of find a solution that made that simple. And so in addition to that, we just had to streamline the process altogether. So in terms of key considerations for Ironclad, we had the needs, and so we had to find the solution. And so AI drafting, I think, given all the intention around ChatGPT over the years, or over the last year and a half or so, we wanted a solution that integrated AI into the drafting process. My team had, before even working with Ironclad, started using it, just playing around with it, like I think a lot of people do at home or maybe in the workplace. Can I create a template that, we don't have a template maybe, and the team comes up and they need this contract and we didn't have it. So, create contracts or change some certain language or write an email. And so I thought, that's going to be the future. So what can we do to leverage AI in our CLM? And then obviously we had about almost 4,000 contracts that we had to get into this repository. I certainly didn't want any of my team spending time going through and pulling out key dates and key clauses. So I needed something to kind of extract that data and put it in a searchable format. And that's where AI import came in. And then really a unified end-to-end approach and a solution to communicate internally was also key. It's great to have the tools, but if you can't communicate internally and you can't communicate with your counterparties and look at dashboards and see where your contracts live, it's not really worth it. It's not as efficient as it could be. So those were all the things we were looking at with Ironclad. And then Ironclad really hit all those needs and wants. And then cost factor was obviously, on point with what we needed.
That's so interesting. Thanks for sharing all of that, Josh. And yeah, it totally resonated when you talked about chat GPT and how that just kind of changed the way everyone worked. And there's now AI that you can leverage to kind of do these day-to-day tasks. Time to value is so top of mind for customers, and implementation speed is something that my team personally is gold on. So we're thrilled to see that since purchasing Ironclad in September, you're already on your way to becoming a product expert and using our AI features. I think you had probably one of our speediest implementations, and you're seeing value pretty quickly. I'm sure our audience is really dying to know, like, what's the secret? What advice do you have to those folks who are implementing?
Yeah, well, clearly I'm not an expert on Ironclad yet, especially given all the questions I asked my implementation manager. Shout out to Jelly. Shout out to Jelly. She was fantastic. But it's an easy solution to implement. I think once you get to basics done. So I think when it comes to implementation, there's a couple parts. There's the front end, the work, creating the workflows, but then there's the implementation of rolling it out to the team. And I was concerned about that coming in because anytime you're kind of implementing a software across different departments and within a company, you need buy-in from those departments, you need buy-in from the users, and then they need to actually use it and find value in it, or else it's not going to go well. And so, my initial hope early on in the process was I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to just launch 2 workflows, a third-party paper workflow that I think was going to act as a catch-all for all our incoming contracts. And then we're a franchise brand, so I thought, what are a lot of the contracts we do is franchise agreements, clearly. And so I want to have an internal franchise agreement workflow. Throughout creating those, I realized really quickly how easy it was to create simple workflows, MNDAs, influencer agreements, simple releases. And so I think I'm utilizing about 12 workflows right now. I've implemented public workflows where you can just send links out for contracts that aren't negotiated, and the end user can just input a couple information. The contract gets filed, signed, filed, archived without really any intervention. And I remember saying early on that I was not going to do that, but as I learned more about the software, how easy it was, and I gained trust in it, I was able to roll them out really quickly. And then, as far as the rollout goes, a little more on that. It took us about 2 months or so, I think, to get those 2 workflows, or at least one of the workflows, strong enough for me to start training. And so, I wanted to train a department. First off, I didn't want to train the whole company at one time. It's just too many people, too many cooks in the kitchen. They're going to ask questions that I'm not going to want to answer. And so I figured I'm going to pick a department that I worked really closely with, that I knew that they appreciated the work that legal does. So I think, when you're looking at rolling out something like this to different departments, pick a team member and a group of teams that, you work closely with. They appreciate the value and they're open to technology. For me and Smoothie King, that was our marketing department. They also give me the most headaches, but that's a different conversation. So what I did was I held a 1-hour lunch and learn session. I brought in lunch, right? Food makes everyone happy. And I ran through a sample third-party intake form. And I basically set it up so I was acting as maybe the workflow creator. I had another one team member on my side being the legal reviewer, and had a third employee acting as a counterparty. And we projected it up on the screen, and we just walked them through what that process looks like for various types of contracts. And then I repeated it, but I had the marketing team members do that as well. And it was really simple. They understood all the issues. They asked a bunch of great questions, and in about an hour, we completed it. And I kind of released them off into the wild and to start launching workflows, which they did. I got a great response. And so my next department I trained, and I thought this is interesting, is I had my HR team. I trained my HR team on some of their workflows. And after the training was done, they came to me and said, Josh, this is great, but we don't need lunch. We don't need an hour. You can actually cut it down to 30 minutes. And it's so intuitive that, we got this. And I was a little skeptical, but I trust my HR team. And so that's kind of what I did for every other department within our company when I launched them. And it was a 30-minute training, just kind of run through a quick scenario and be available for questions. I think for a couple quick tips on this, have someone dedicated on your implementation team. If it's an attorney, if it's you have a legal ops, team member that can help out, but have them be a point person that they can answer all the questions that come in from the various departments. I think that's important. We also set up a Teams channel specifically for questions, and I think that was helpful. Make sure you respond to it. I often found myself monitoring the Teams channel with questions, and really, instead of responding, if they were in the office, I would get up and walk over to their workstation and just walk them through the solution. Because when you show somebody how to do something kind of live like that, you can do it over Teams call or something like that. But when you're actually walking them through, they're not going to ask you the questions again because they get it. And it is that simple.
That is so interesting, and I love the way you approached it. It's also so funny that the marketing team, you kind of brought out the red carpet for, did lunch, scheduled an hour, and then HR team was like, we don't need that. 30 minutes and just get it done.
The other departments were like, where's my lunch?
Yeah. Makes sense. I think that's such a good way of approaching it, though. I think, sometimes it's easy to get hung up on this big bang launch that requires you to get all these, moving pieces kind of sorted and finalized before launching, and that can tend to take a while and slow you down. And I think having this sort of treating it like a proof of concept with one department, seeing what you can learn from that and taking that to the other is a really, really successful approach that's allowed you to work nimbly and move quickly. So that's awesome.
And what's great on that, Lauren, just to add something is, workflows aren't static, right? So you can make changes on the fly as you go through them. And so, I think I learned from launching it to the marketing team. They had questions and different changes they wanted to make, potentially to make it easier for them to understand, because the way I as an attorney may look at a question may be totally different from a department and how they look at a question. So as you're building out those workflows or launching the trainings, be open-minded to who the end user is going to be of that workflow.
That is so true, and that is the beauty of Workflow Designer. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. You started using Ironclad's AI features pretty early on in your customer journey. How have you balanced kind of the core implementation milestones like workflow building and contract migration with actually using the product and investing time in those new features?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the saying is we built the plane while we were flying it, or even we were taking off, while we were building it. I get really excited about technology in the legal field. It's something that I've used I use project management software for the last maybe 8 to 10 years. I used to be one of those attorneys with sticky notes and spreadsheets and everything. And so, I realized early on in my career that technology was a way to create efficiencies within myself, and then also my teams as they rolled it out. And so, I saw the benefits early on with Ironclad and the potential that it had. So, my goal was to run as fast as I could, as quickly as possible, and just kind of rip that Band-Aid off and implement quickly. And so, we had our first workflow up and running, maybe 2 months or so. And I jumped right into training, which we just discussed. And it was a pretty seamless process. But as we were finishing up creating that first workflow is when I realized okay, how else can we use it? And, it was well, we can do simple MNDAs. We can do basic template agreements. A great one is we have an influencer contract, right? We do a lot of marketing, hence I'm close with our marketing team, and they have a lot of contracts that come through that are really fill in the blanks, and it's enter in a dollar amount, enter in an influencer name, and our legal team used to touch all of those contracts. But it's something that's not negotiated. So why do we need to be involved in those types of contracts if I know that they're locked? And so, creating a couple question workflow and having my marketing team send it out to the influencer to get signed and then archived and filed, it was really easy. We have a lot of different variations of NDAs for various use cases, photo, video releases. And so all these little ones that I wasn't thinking about launching early on in the process, I wanted to focus on the big ones. All these little ones just kind of fell into place, and they really just take a couple minutes to create early on. And then the neat feature about the training is once you have a department using it and you train them on one workflow, that's what I did. It's really simple to just launch more workflows with the department. And so, I would create a couple different workflows like the influencer one or an MNDA and just send an email out to the team and say, hey, you've got new workflows. And I kind of created a shared document that has a list of all workflows by department so they can reference it if they need to see. And then if you get an email in and say, hey, can you work on this contract? It's like, well, go back to Ironclad and check out the workflow. So you don't need additional trainings to launch more workflows once the department's been trained on the software, which I think is a great feature. So at the same time that we were working on those workflow builds, we also did our imports. I think early on I wanted to do my import first, but we kind of ran with everything at once. And so we're building the workflows and we did our import. And if you remember, that was one of the core features that I needed to launch. We had to clean up our database. And it was simple. We used the AI import feature. We cleaned it up a little bit with some of the metadata exports and imports, but it was pretty seamless.
Yeah, makes sense. I think a lot of our customers tend to start with the workflow builds as well, because it allows you to establish that framework of the repository and the records that you want to track and the record properties and record types. So super common, and it's obviously not easy to do all things at once. But I love what you shared too about like starting with one workflow for a department and then slowly trickling new workflows in. Again, they don't need new training. It's just reintroducing kind of like all the workflows that they can start using as they come out.
Right.
Well, thanks for that. Implementation is obviously near and dear to my heart, as you know. So appreciate just all the learnings that you've been sharing on that. Transitioning away from implementation a little bit, can you share how Smoothie King legal team is using AI today, both like in and outside of Ironclad?
Yeah, sure. I think, and I think we've got a lot of neat things kind of on the horizon as a brand with AI, but outside of Ironclad, but within Ironclad. We use all the features, right? It's playbooks, AI Assist, and AI Import. We kind of touched upon some of them already. But what's neat about it is it goes hand in hand. For playbooks, they're really easy to set up using whatever canned kind of templates or language that you have. Something that I've done, and I had a former colleague kind of clue me into this process in the past, but I had used previously a short form addendum for all low dollar contracts. So something where I knew if a contract that came in had these 4 or 5 key terms, it was going to be okay. We had termination for convenience. We've got a strong force majeure language or warranty section or a termination for breach that no matter what else the contract said, if it has our key terms, I don't have to really worry about it as much, and I didn't have to spend time reviewing it. Think about we get a lot of these. How many times a department submits a work order or something that has nothing but a number on it and parties that are incorrect, or a small contract that has like 0 terms and conditions, and you're just like, oh, and it's a PDF, so you can't redline it, and you don't want to spend time creating the terms and conditions from scratch. And so throughout my career for the last few years, I've used just a short form addendum, and that's great. And since I had that in place previously, I was able to just take that addendum with 8 or 9 key clauses, and that became my playbook. So if you utilize something like that, look to that to start your playbook, and you don't have to put them all in at the same time, but you can start with 2 or 3. But it was really easy for us to kind of get our playbook up and running. And so after that, I think AI Assist is a great feature we use pretty regularly, more so than I thought. I thought it might have been like a novel feature, but it is fantastic. And I talked to a lot of people about it, and it's just a quick and easy way to make changes to common terms that you're always negotiating contracts, like indemnifications or choice of law. It's just easy to use. Literally, you highlight the paragraph, you select AI Assist, and you type a prompt, And the prompt can be really simple, like make it mutual. I was just at a conference this past weekend, and I was discussing AI because AI was all over the conference. And I was talking about contract management, and I was explaining to them, and they actually asked, like, is that all you type in for the prompt? And I'm like, yeah, I literally say make it mutual, and the indemnification clause gets redlined to be mutual versus one-sided, and it gives you different options to choose from. So that's I think it's a great feature, and there are better ways and more powerful ways to use it, but even at its simplest form, it's beneficial. And then AI import, which really is kind of the front end of it, being able to migrate, upload large volumes of contracts, extracting key data terms. I think it's pretty fantastic. And then, I guess I'll end on this for the inside of Ironclad. An unintended benefit that I had, which I really wasn't expecting, is it actually is a great tool for training new team members, lawyers, or even interns. So I bring on a third-year law student each year to kind of intern with my team. It's something I've done for years. And usually they come in with very little contract training. And so kind of I like to kind of cue them up on what our key policies are, what our key terms are. Well, that's great. Go look at our playbook, because now all of a sudden they have a kind of a recipe for what we want our contracts to say. And you kind of let them in on the drafting phase and let them use the AI tools, teach them how to use it, and now all of a sudden they can see best practices for revising contracts. And it's just and I talked to my intern about it afterwards and during, and they thought it was fantastic. And I think it really accelerated their learnings on contract management, certainly, but just contract drafting as well.
So interesting. Like both the real life application of AI assist, like you talked about, and the training of law students. I think that's so brilliant, and how cool that you can do that with some of
Yeah,
Iron.
and I'll continue to use that process. I
Yeah.
think as I bring on a new attorney this summer, like I mentioned, and outside of Ironclad, because I didn't touch upon that. We did implement this fall a trademark search and monitoring software that uses AI. And what it does is it does casts a wide net, and it culls through like all the various registrations on the USPTO website. It looks common law marks, websites, business filings, and it kind of gives like a red, green, yellow risk assessment, and it saves a ton of time on my end. Normally I'll go back to my marketing team. I'll get email from them saying, hey, we're going to develop this new product or a new smoothie, and these are the names we're thinking of calling it. Can you run some searches and verify we can use it? And they send me like 25 names, and I'm just thinking, okay, well, I'm not going to spend money outsourcing 25 names when they're going to whittle it down. And so it's a great way to kind of use the software. They kind of uses AI to kind of knock out some searches really quickly. And then I say, okay, here's 5, come back to me with 2, and then I'll invest and do a more thorough search to make sure we can trademark it. Obviously, I think some of our departments are like we did early on, utilizing ChatGPT maybe for drafting emails or job postings.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty common out there. And then, as I mentioned, I was at a conference this weekend, and it was on franchising. There's over 4,000 people there, and AI was like the main topic. When you walk the trade show floors, like every other vendor you see out of like hundreds of vendors had like some hook into AI, and from HR tools. I think a big one is like development and lead generating, and using chats to kind of funnel, whittle down that funnel to make sure a lead's qualified. And we're looking at all those options, so I'm pretty excited about it.
So interesting. I feel like in 2024, no matter what function you sit in within a company, the question is how you incorporate AI into your day to day. So super interesting to hear about those use cases. Thanks for sharing that. A big theme I see from our customers is really an interest in AI providing sort of efficiency gains and making teams more efficient and being able to do less with more. Was efficiency a driver for you? How has AI functionality driven efficiency and contract cycle times at Smoothie King?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. It's an obvious answer. Absolutely. Efficiency was definitely a driver, but for us, I looked at it a little bit differently, and I think transparency was just as important for us and for me personally. Right, having a dashboard where my team can manage all their contracts, know their statuses, being able to follow up internally and with external parties and counterparties, and not getting all the email questions of hey, what's the status on this? When are you going to get this contract? And what has the counterparty said? And having my team and the internal departments, having just a real time way to view the status of everything, it creates efficiencies just by itself. So I think that's that transparency creates efficiencies. And so, creating templates for simple contracts, where departments can self-serve is also created a ton of efficiencies. I mean, we've cut down our review internally of contracts by several hundred each year just by implementing some of these self-serve contracts. And then drafting contracts is easier too. So when you can collaborate with the team, if you have junior attorneys, they can focus on some of the smaller contracts or just quickly identifying some of the key clauses using the assist feature, for example. It's a way to kind of level up your team pretty quickly and create those efficiencies.
So cool. Love to hear about the efficiency you've created for legal by creating these self-serve contracts. How are legal and procurement working together in Ironclad? We know it should always be all about legal, but sometimes it's not. What benefits are your partner teams like procurement realizing through Ironclad's AI features?
Yeah, that's a good question because it had a very positive unintended benefit with my procurement team. But I will say, if I'm doing a good job, if my team's doing a good job, I don't want it to be about legal, right? It's really about the brand. And when you talk about contracts, we should be behind the scenes. We should be facilitating those efficiencies, creating them, allowing the departments to kind of run as fast as they can run to get the deals done, so the brand can move forward. But our procurement team is a good example actually because we, as I was rolling it out to the various departments, and I got to my procurement team, they're like, hey, we do a lot of contracts that are basic. And, and when I say procurement, I'm mainly talking about our supply team. Obviously we have a lot of ingredients in our smoothies. We do a lot of buying. And so we have basic supply agreements, statement of works, and amendments that are, not really modified at all or very heavily. And it's for lower volume deals. And so we created a workflow in conjunction with this department to do that. And what's kind of a neat feature about Ironclad is you can have kind of a self-serve menu where in one workflow, you're able to say, hey, what do you need? Do you need a statement of work? Do you need an amendment? Do you need a basic supply agreement? Or a combination of all three? Check the box. And then it creates the various templates based on what you inputted. And in doing so, they're able to now self-serve the majority. I'd say about 80% of the contracts my supply team does on a day-to-day basis, they self-serve using this workflow, which has saved my team a ton of time, which is great. And it made them go faster. So cuts down on our reviews and empowers them to kind of go as quickly as they want to. And it provides the procurement team a tracking mechanism to see kind of where they are in the process. I think they used to use spreadsheets or something in the past.
Super interesting. I know this next question is one that many folks in the audience have today. So, as a CLO, can you tell us how you're thinking about AI responsibility? What did it take for you to feel confident in Ironclad's approach?
Yeah, that is a good question. Early on in the process, I had a concern with, and I think this is probably a common theme of and I get asked this actually a lot. Hey, you're uploading a bunch of information into Ironclad, and it's being digested, and is it being shared with OpenAI or whatever platform Ironclad's using? What about the searches that we're using AI Assist, and are those snippets going up? And there's confidentiality concerns, and how is that being handled? And early on in my review, I asked that question before the contract was even signed because I wanted to make sure that we were going to be protected. And we were provided I think Ironclad has a white paper, and Lauren, I'll defer to you on that. But I was told, and the white paper confirmed it, the information is not shared. It's not shared kind of upstream to be sent into the broader audience. And so I got comfortable. I had my IT team kind of looked into the different various solutions and protections that were in place. And so that was comfortable. So, that's in terms of Ironclad. I think AI as like a broader conversation, we are in the process of drafting a generative AI use policy within the workplace. I think that's really important to do. We've created a sprint team to kind of our goals to get this done by the end of Q1. I think I'm late, right? I think we built the plane while we were flying it type of thing. And I got so excited with Ironclad that, I think we have to have a back end policy in place to kind of support that, the needs and create that governance around it. Internally with my team, taking it down a little bit level, it's a risk. How do you manage risk within using AI within your contracts, right? I think it's an important topic, and we use a really simple trust but verify approach. AI I think it's a great tool, but it's just a tool, right? It flags variances, it flags deviations from whatever your playbook standards are. It can create sample language, but I want an attorney to review that still. I'm not at the point where I can say, hit the AI assist feature, accept it, and then send it off to the counterparty. I don't catch a lot of issues, so that's not my concern. I just need another set of eyes on it, and so that trust but verify approach is important. I don't see myself moving away from that anytime soon, even though I'm sure the software is going to continue to develop at the rapid rate it's been over the last year and a half. But I also have, and I mentioned this a second ago, copyright concerns outside of Ironclad. So when you think about your company, and how like our PR team, they draft press releases or all these public-facing documents. Are they using AI to draft these documents? Are they what snippets of information and language are they using that could be a copyright violation? And I think that's going to be, it will be, and it is a huge part of our AI policy that we're developing. And then finally, as a CLO, you have to think about what partners are you using and your vendors, and what are they doing from an AI perspective, and do they have an AI policy in place? If they do, I want to review it. And also, we're building into our contracts that if they have an AI policy, if they use AI, they need to have an AI policy. They have to provide that to us. And if they provide us any information that's been generated using AI, they have to disclose that to us so we can further assess that risk. I think that's a really important component.
Super interesting. I'm glad the white paper helped assuage some concerns. If anyone needs access to that, feel free to reach out to your account team and we can get that to you. And I love the trust but verify mindset and approach. I think AI is so new that's just a really responsible mindset to have as we're learning so much about how to use it in our day to day. Awesome. I know that's a question many folks in the audience have. So thanks for sharing all that. I am sure that was useful information for many. I know it was for me. We've been talking so much about using Ironclad AI to review and negotiate contracts, but many people in our audience might not actually know what we're talking about. So we wanted to spend a couple minutes here showing you a short demo clip of AI Assist.
Ironclad customers now have access to the world's most advanced generative AI for contract negotiation. It's called AI Assist. Let's see how it works. Here, we're looking at a master service agreement, and looks like this customer data clause needs some work. So we'll select it and bring in AI Assist. AI Assist analyzes the clause for anything that might be missing or unacceptable, and provides a few suggestions. And here's what we're looking for: a provision for notification in case of a data breach. Now, AI Assist generates a few options for how to word it. We'll pick the one we like best, and AI Assist makes the edit. Pretty cool, right? Let's look at another example. We want this clause to provide mutual non-disclosure, so we'll select it, and this time we'll type in our own request. Make confidentiality mutual. Just like ChatGPT, AI Assist can interpret this prompt and generate the edits we're looking for. The first one looks great, so we'll swap it in. All right, one final example. Here, we can see that Ironclad AI has analyzed the contract, compared it against your company's contract playbook, and flagged the areas with potential issues. We could address these one by one, but instead, let's get some help from AI Assist. In a second or two, AI Assist suggested red lines for all 5 issues at once, based on your preferred positions. We'll review and apply all changes. As you can see, the issues have been resolved, and we're ready to send it to the counterparty. So that's an overview of AI Assist, one of the latest additions to Ironclad's AI-powered digital contracting platform.
All right. Hope that was insightful for folks in the audience who are newer to Ironclad and some of our AI features. Before we dive into the real Q&A from the audience, we had a fun question for you, Josh. If Ironclad AI was a Smoothie King smoothie flavor, what would be in it, or what smoothie would it be?
That's a tough one. We have, with all the different combinations, we have well over 100 different smoothies. I think the Gladiator smoothie is a great one. It's robust, it's power packed with protein, got a lot of nutrients, and it helps you achieve the goals that you're setting out to do. Ironclad does the same thing.
That's awesome. I love that answer for many reasons. At Ironclad, we call ourselves gladiators.
Oh,
So the stars really aligned on that one, and that sounds delicious. Okay, why don't we go ahead and transition into the live Q&A from the audience? So I'll go ahead and start just pulling up the Q&A and asking you questions from the audience here. So first one is, how big is Smoothie King? We're also a small legal team, about 4 people, currently supporting an org of about 350 people.
Great question. And I love that you're a small legal team. We have 1,150 locations, but we're a franchise brand, and so we're asset light. And so we have about 60 company locations, and within those 60, probably a little over 1,000 employees. In our core kind of support team, support office, we're maybe 120 or 130 employees.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Second one here, how long was the actual implementation process? Maybe from like start to like workflows built or to training the marketing department?
Yeah, that's a good question. We started in September, October. I think the first larger workflow we created, the third-party paper, was about 2-month time frame, month and a half, 2 months. The AI import feature for the migration of the contracts, we did that on our own, and we had questions along the way, and so that was pretty simple. You do have to, and I think Lauren, you mentioned this earlier on. Do some pre-planning work to make sure that the record types that you want to set up are one in Ironclad already prior to you doing the import. But you want to think through your structure, right? And there's a lot of different ways to do it. Do you want departments? Do you want to, as a property type, which we did? Do you want to have, what are the different record types you use? You can make it really complex and have a lot of record types, different types of contracts, or you can kind of simplify it and merge different categories. So that's definitely something to think through prior to doing the import and starting on the workflows.
I think that's such a good point, Josh. Like, implementation never really ends. It's
no. That was the 2 months to launch that, and then the trainings took. I did most of our trainings over 2 to 3 weeks. I think within 3 weeks from my first training, the whole company was trained. And then you're never stopping. Like it's amazing how many, when you talk to people or you get a random contract request in and you're like, oh, like, okay, like I can automate this, or I can make this self-serve and make it easier. And so as long as you have that hat on, that lens on of like, how can I create more efficiencies within the department and make it easier for the departments to kind of use it, it's always evolving.
That's awesome. Did Smoothie King consider other CLMs, and what ultimately led you to choosing Ironclad?
Yeah, that's a good question. We did. We actually went with another competitor early on just the repository side, which did make some of the importing a little easier on our end. But we quickly realized that given the partnerships that Ironclad has with OpenAI and the features that they've been developing for years, they were much more advanced, and so we migrated very quickly from them. But we looked at. I put an RFP out. We looked at several other competing products.
Got it. The 4,000 contracts that you imported, can you talk about the format of those? Were those all in PDF format or various formats?
Yeah, combination. All PDFs, all signed contracts in PDFs. Some were like a DocuSign. Some were scanned versions. We're a franchise brand, so we had 10-plus-year-old contracts that we were importing. So a mixture of all that.
Got it. Makes sense. What elements of each contract request did you allow the internal stakeholders to access and use? For example, did you inform internal stakeholders about the redlining features and the AI and let them use that? Or did you constrain that access solely to stay within the legal team?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think so. First, on the AI side, I do not allow the various departments to use that. I kind of leave that to my team. Um, I want to trust but verify. I'll go back to trust but verify. I just feel more comfortable at this time having my legal team handle the AI side of things, especially on the third party paper contracts. As far as the the redlining feature, they use it. So when a workflow comes in, my first ask before my legal team touches it is that the business department looks at the contract, add internal comments. We actually didn't touch upon internal versus external commenting feature, which I think is really cool within Ironclad. If you flag an internal contract or internal comment, then even if you send it to the outside department, there's no, it gets stripped. So you don't get to, you don't have to worry about, all those internal comments going from the business department to the outside. So yes on the redlining, but no on the AI import.
Got it. Do you use Ironclad AI with your own company's paper, or is that just outside paper?
I'm definitely outside paper. That's a given. I think with our own paper, if we not on the front end because we have our own templates that we've uploaded and built the workflow out of, but after you send it to the counterparty, when they redline it and you digest it back and you're now reviewing their comments, I absolutely use the AI. So I'll use the AI assist feature on that based on their changes to revert or make minor tweaks there. I'll then bounce it back and just if they made a change to one of our key clauses that I have in my playbook, we'll use that, or I can go. I have my playbook set up also for a couple of the terms to have secondary positions and kind of fallback positions. And so, choice of law is a really basic example, but if we pick, Texas and they pick California, we'll settle on New York or Delaware, for example.
Got it. Interesting. How do you handle exceptions to contract terms?
I think there's a couple of ways to interpret this question, but one way I guess is if you get a contract in that is contrary to your playbook, so it's an exception. A lot of times I'll just redline the contract that way. I may not use the playbook if I know if it's flagged or maybe it's not present. So maybe that's what exceptions would mean in this question. So I'll either insert it from the playbook or I'll just redline like I would have normally done on a Word document.
Got it. All right, moving along here. There are a lot of questions, so thank you to the audience for submitting these, and thanks, Josh, for bearing with us. What types of contracts do you consider self-service?
Yeah, I think we touched upon a little bit of this. So self-service to me, because I know I probably said that term a couple times, is a contract where like a public workflow would definitely fall into a self-service contract for me, where we can, a business team can send a link out. The counterparty fills in their name, basic or entity, basic information, like an MNDA. Think of. They fill out their information, and it automatically just gets routed for signature, or through ClickWrap. We implemented ClickWrap as well, which is really simple. So that's basic. I consider that self-service, and that's kind of where no one in the company really is doing anything other than sending a link, right? And I think that's the ultimate example. I also consider self-service the contracts where my business teams kick off a contract workflow and they fill out the workflow questions where the contract then is auto-generated and then they send it out to the third party. So it doesn't have to involve legal review or input. And that would be kind of expanding on, the kind of the middle of the road contracts. So our influencer contracts, the MNDAs, even the basic supply agreement workflows that I discussed earlier.
So like little to no legal intervention.
Basically no legal intervention is kind of how I define self-service.
Yeah. What is what is the TM search tool called?
That is it's a Canadian company and they are called Haloo.
Haloo.
Haloo. Yeah, HALOO.
Got it. Can you tell us a bit more about the import of your current contracts into Ironclad? Did you use a different CLM before and download those contracts from that CLM before importing into Ironclad, or did you upload from Smoothie King's like network drives or shared drive folders?
Yeah, that's a good question because I think there's a lot of different ways you can handle it. As I mentioned earlier, we did have a third party company, repository brand handle our contracts before. What I found out is it was in this brand, it was difficult for me to extract the contracts. One, the naming conventions were not in a format that I wanted to implement. And so just as a best practice throughout my time at Smoothie King and other brands, we store contracts in like triplicate. So, I have multiple copies of contracts. My paralegal probably doesn't like that I make her save it in multiple spots, but just as a safety net, it's something that we've done. And so I actually imported from our hierarchical folder structure within Smoothie King.
Super interesting. I know that one's top of mind for many folks coming to Ironclad, especially from legacy or different CLM providers. Mm-hmm. What procurement system is Smoothie King using? Are you using the implementation with Zip?
I'm not, and we don't actually have a standalone separate procurement system in place.
All right. Have you considered using AI to create a first draft of the generative AI use policy?
Absolutely, and we did.
Very meta.
Great. Absolutely, yes, we did. And I used it as a comparison tool. So what I always when I use AI or ChatGPT or something, some of those softwares to draft contracts, I don't necessarily use the end results, but I'll look at other templates, look at examples, reach out to other colleagues, and I'll use the AI generated text to supplement, add, replace, and kind of make it our own. Yeah, but yes.
It doesn't sound like you had Ironclad integrating with another program like Salesforce. Is that true? Can you speak on that? Any systems you're integrating with?
Yes. So we do not integrate into Salesforce. We use Salesforce within our brand. We are, from a franchise dev standpoint, we are implementing a new third-party software for a CRM type tool that we will be implementing to kick off workflows from our franchise agreement workflow.
Got it.
I've not gone through that process yet.
So. Okay. Well, we look forward to supporting you through that when you're ready. A few more here. Thanks so much for bearing with us. There's some really good questions from the audience. What percentage of your contracts are third-party paper? Can you give a rough estimate of that? What types of contracts do you engage in?
Yeah, it's actually a good question because I'm going to answer it differently than I would have answered it before I implemented Ironclad. I think early on, and whenever I spoke about contracts and when I was pitching to the other executives of like how great this is going to be, I was like, most of our contracts, like 80% of our contracts are third-party paper. I can do one workflow. This is going to be great. But what's neat is as I went through the process, it's not that we didn't know about all these other contracts, but you don't think about some of the small contracts that the team touches, like NDAs or influencer agreements. We do a couple hundred of those of influencer agreements a year, and so it's you don't realize the amount of contracts that the team is touching. That I may not be seeing them all the time, but someone on your team is touching and time taking up time. So now, and certainly franchise agreements are our paper, but now it's probably like a 60-40 split, 50-50 split, I guess, internal and third party. And it's interesting. And so I will say the longer we use Ironclad, the more we can think of different use cases. The amount of our paper that we're using versus third-party paper, because it's easy, is just growing. So I think it's going to keep shifting, and I'm getting more comfortable pushing our with different examples, coming up with solutions to utilize our paper.
That is so cool. That is the end goal. I love to hear that. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that one. All right. The second to last one here. My feeling so far is that AI assisted drafting, whether contracts or emails, neither saves time nor improves quality for my team of senior lawyers who are very quick in drafting themselves. And am I missing the point or appropriate use cases? Do you have a point of view on that?
Definitely. And I hear, whoever asked that question, I hear you, because you've got great attorneys. They're quick drafters. They're awesome, and they're doing a great job. I don't think you're missing the point with the question, but I think you're missing opportunities possibly. And so I think you have to just think about it a little differently. I totally agree. As a seasoned attorney, I've got a great contract attorney. They can redline documents super quickly, right? But then I started asking myself as I dug more into Ironclad, why? Why do I want my, seasoned attorney, going through an indemnification clause and making it mutual? I'd rather have them or myself work on negotiating complex business terms or highly technical parts of a contract, or working with the business teams to kind of further their goals, versus spending just time on the neutral clauses or changing choice of law or something like that. So for me, it's more of a matter of what's the highest value work that I can have my attorneys do based on their skill set, based on whatever level they're at. And my job is to enable them to spend as much time as they can on that work product to make not only my department efficient, but the other, the business department and the brand, more efficient.
I think that's such a good perspective, Josh. I appreciate you sharing that. I think it's all about perspective and like what you want the team really focused on. And so I think that's a really good way of looking at it. All right, last one here. Oh, go for it.
Sorry, just because we can doesn't mean we should.
Right? Yeah, love that motto. Okay, final question here. What elements of the automated process would you 100% rely on without the need for human review?
Well, for just automated, not talking about AI, and I think that's actually a good distinction we haven't touched upon is, there are components, and I think a lot of people think that these type of software solution, it's all AI. Well, it's not, right? It creates automation at its core and kind of dashboards and transparency. There are components of it that have AI. So, the question was asked about automation. And I think the simpler contracts that don't involve negotiation, those are the easiest ones that I'm comfortable with. I've spoken about. I don't need any interaction or intervention. And that's the MNDAs. We have franchise candidate questions and NDAs that they fill out that my team, but the sales team just kicks off a workflow by sending them a link, and we don't even nobody even touches it. It just gets filed and it gets saved. So I'm very comfortable with that. That's simple. Next, I think when you want to get a little more sophisticated, it comes down to how sophisticated is your business team and how much do you trust the team you have in front of you to work within whatever you want to launch. And for me, I'll go back to my procurement team. They had already been historically kind of certainly negotiating contracts, but adding comments and doing simple red lines to contracts that we would always review. But once you kind of lock it into the confines of Ironclad and you put parameters around it, I'm comfortable with them doing those simple workflows as well. Now, I will say, whenever a counterparty comes back with further red lines, legal has to touch it. I don't, someone on my team is the signatory approver. We have to gather the signatures. We always put a set of eyes on our contracts. But that's kind of how we handle the middle of the road ones. But I will say, and I've said this, I'm not at a point yet where I trust auto redlining against playbooks without some type of human intervention. That trust but verify. At some point, will I be? Maybe, but I'm not there yet.
I knew you were going to say it again. that trust but verify continues to come back. And I lied. I think there's one more here. You are a hot commodity, Josh. Does the Smoothie King procurement team work on services procurement or just commodity and direct purchases? In other words, does the Smoothie King legal team handle all services and indirect contracts versus a procurement team?
All procurement team is mostly supply driven, but also more traditional procurement services, a lot of service agreements as well. We use our third-party paper intake form and workflow for most of our service agreements. But service agreements are crafted by procurement. We allow each of our departments to kind of manage their own services. And so when an IT team needs a service agreement for something that they need, they'll be the lead contracting. We don't default to procurement team to handle all service type agreements.
Got it. Well, thank you for bearing through all those questions and sharing your insights and real life experiences. I know many in the audience appreciated it and got real value from it. I just wanted to say thank you so much, Josh, for your time and really everyone in the audience who joined us today. If you're interested in learning more about AI Assist and how Ironclad AI can help your team, please check out the link in the chat and feel free to reach out to our team to get more info. We'd love to chat with you. Thanks again, folks, for spending some time with us this afternoon, and we'll speak to y'all soon. And go find a Smoothie King near you.
Thanks, Lauren. I appreciate it.
Thank you.